Hello and welcome to the making of the Sweded Lord of the Rings trailer. Our mission is to make a no-budget Sweded version of a movie trailer, and we've chosen the Lord of the Rings. And today we're making Aragorn's sword. So, since this is a no-budget production, we have to use things that we can find at home. And it just so happens that I have this piece of wood which I can make a sword out of. Now, the problem with making Aragorn's sword from the first movie is because it's not Anduril, his sword from the third movie, and no one really cares about this first sword. Everyone's Anduril, the Flame of the West, reforged from the shards of Narsil, and you don't really find a lot of pictures of his original sword, but I found this picture of the entire Viggo Mortensen, the actor who plays Aragorn, holding his first sword, and as you might see, it is a bit of an angle to that picture, but I figure that it doesn't really matter that much, so I used some math, checked how tall is Viggo Mortensen. He's exactly 180 centimeters according to IMDb, and from there I counted out the length of the sword approximately, and this template is what I've come up with. So to get started with, we look at the shape of the sword. Can see that I have chosen to do this as real swords were actually made in the medieval ages, with a tang to fit the guard and the handle and the pommel onto, and I am going to actually build the handle around the tang instead of doing a fitted piece of wood to slide into the handle, because I cannot drill a piece of wood that is this length. I don't have any drills that is that large, so I will build the handle around the tang and hope that that works out. Now I have to trace the template of the sword onto the wood, and as you can see I have placed mine a couple of centimeters off from the edge, and that is because I noticed that there was a damage to the wood around here. You probably won't see it on camera, but it's there and I don't want it on my sword. So ideally I would have placed the edge of the sword to the edge of the wood to save as much wood as possible, but I'll have to do it like this now. So I have now traced the entire sword onto the wood. I don't know if you can see my lines very well, but they are there. And now comes perhaps the biggest problem, because I can't saw a straight line or any kind of shape to save my life, so I will just have to make a rough cut, and then it will be mostly sanding and rasping and perhaps some knife work to get this into shape. So in the end I managed to get some help from my much more handy mother to saw this out, which means I got the rough cut pretty good. Now I only have to sand it down to shape, and then comes the big question if one sheet is going to be thick enough to make the entire sword, and I hope so, because when I'm filming this I don't know if we're going to do the Gandalf versus Balrog "You shall not pass" scene, but if we are going to do that one, we will need a copy of Glamdring Gandalf's sword as well, and if one sheet is enough, I hope I will have enough wood to make at least the blade of Glamdring out of this same piece. But if I'm gonna have to glue two pieces together, I probably won't, so keep your fingers crossed. It is now some 3.5, 4 hours and one lunch break later, and I have managed to sand this down to shape. It's still a tiny bit uneven, but I'm quite happy with it, and I figure it will do. It's only gonna be on screen for like 5 seconds. Maybe I even put too much work into something that is going to be on screen for 5 seconds, but this is a hobby project for me as well as a movie prop. So, and now to testing the durability, and I think that it's not flopping around. It has some flex into it, but it's not flopping around when I'm wielding it, so one sheet should do fine, and that is very good because I really don't want to double this thickness, and it's crucial to know that now because I'm gonna custom fit the guard and the pommel and the handle to this tang part, so that is why I need to know this now, not only because of the glamdring might be prop that I might gonna make. So as you might see now when I'm holding this up, it's slightly bent or slightly curved to one angle. That is because the wood was leaned against the wall and bent when it was stored. So I am going to clamp this down now in opposite bent direction and hope it straightens out before I do anything else on this actual blade. But I'm going to go back to the drawing board and sketch out the guard and the pommel meanwhile. Now what we know about the guard is that it is 20 centimeters approximately across, and I know that I made the tang 3 centimeters, so it's 1.5 centimeters from each side to the middle, and the blade is 5 centimeters at its widest, and also know that it has a slight curve to it. So I have now made 2 guard pieces. I did this slim one first, and I liked that one better, but I wasn't sure if it's gonna hold up when I put it onto the wood later, so I made a thicker one as well, and well, we'll see what's happened. And there's the pommel, and the pommel is gonna be a problem because it's kind of egg-shaped, and it's 3-dimensional egg shape, so I'm not really sure how to work that onto the wood, but it's gonna look something like that. So now I've straightened out the blade, or actually I overbent it at first. I didn't add much of a bend to it when I first clamped it down, but it was apparently too much, but now it's as straight as I can ask from this blade. And I've also got started with the guard, and I've chosen to do this in layers. At first I thought about just making one solid piece of wood and drilling through it, but then I realized that the tang is of course the same thickness as one of these guard pieces, since they are from the same wood, so I'm going to take these cut off guard pieces and glue them on like that, and then glue these on either side of them, or actually I'm going to glue them together and then slide that onto, but you get the idea. And I've chosen, I need to sand this down a bit more, but I've chosen not sand them perfectly, because even though I trace them off the same template, they might be somewhat different, so I'll glue them together first and then sand them to their final shape before sliding them onto the tang. Hello and welcome back to the making of the Sweded Lord of the Rings trailer. It's now day 2, and it's also day 2 of the making of Aragorn's sword. I've glued the guard pieces and let them dry overnight, and then I've sanded them down to about an even shape. And this is now going to fit on here. It's a very tight fit, but I promise it will go on there. I'll show you in a second. There, now it's on, and it is starting to look more like an actual sword and not just a blade with a handle. But I am not going to glue this right now, because I noticed the blade is slightly bent again. Probably didn't let it sit for long enough in clamped position, so I will leave it like this overnight and get started working on the pommel instead. I have now traced the pommel pieces, or what's gonna be the pommel, and I've decided, rather than measured it, to 4 centimeters width, and that means 4 centimeters high also, And the reason why I decided it is because I couldn't find any good picture where I knew any other measurements for reference point, but this sheet is about 4 millimeters thick. That means I will need 10 pieces to make up the entire pommel in both directions, and of course I made 11 pieces just to have an extra to carve out of. And these two are actually pieces of the guard, which I forgot because I didn't really see them on my picture, but I eventually found other pictures of the sword. It turns out there are actually quite a lot of pictures of the sword. The reason why I didn't find them earlier was because I was looking for a picture with Viggo Mortensen holding the sword, so I could have him as a reference when I measured. But these are going to be fitted onto the blade at the very top of the guard, and on either side of the blade, of course. So now I will get to cutting these out and come back to you later. So now it's day 3 of the making of this Sweded Lord of the Rings trailer, the making of Aragorn's sword. I have now cut out all of these pommel pieces, or almost all of them. I got 2 left, I think. I can only see one now, maybe I only got 1 left, but yeah, and there are very uneven against each other because of my non-existent sewing skills, but just like I did with the guard, I'll glue them together and reshape them from there. And I'll also cut out a slot in the pommel piece like this to fit onto the tang, and then build on either side from there, or I'll probably slide it on like I did with the guard and then sand it down to shape. And I've also glued on the guard so it will stay in place now, and I saw these 2 extra grip pieces that I will glue on and sand down to shape before I put on the pommel, so I know just how much handle I'll need there, and it's because it's easier to shape the pommel around the handle than the other way around, because you see it's rounded there. And yeah, that is pretty much all I have to say for this update, because once I glue these, they will have to sit overnight before I can do anything else, and I will need to test the pommel pieces on the guard before I can glue them together, and because I'm gonna sand this down, I can't do that until tomorrow. So yeah, that was all I had to say for now. So it's now the 4th day in the making of, well, you know the drill by now. I have glued on the other 2 handle pieces to the tang now, and this is the final thickness of the grip. I will of course sand it down, smoothen it, even it out and round it a bit, but this is about how thick it's going to be. And I also glued these pommel pieces 4x4 so that I will have one of these on each side of the tang like that, and then 3 pieces with the sword out into the middle in which to fit, so I can fit it onto the tang. And so I will get to that. I've now rounded the edges of this handle, and it feels really good lying there in the hand. And now, while I'm waiting for the rest of the pommel pieces there to glue, or the glue to set, I will work on the finish of the blade, which will include coating it in this aluminum foil, because I didn't want to paint it. You know, it's hard to get a good look with paint, but this is already metallic, so I will use that to create that metallic look for my blade and hope it works out. So it's now the 5th day in the making, and we've decided that we are going to shoot as much as possible tomorrow. Today it's Thursday and tomorrow it's Friday, and we're gonna shoot as much as possible then, so I'm in a bit of a hurry to get this done, but I am hopeful that it will be ready by tomorrow. And so as I could quickly tell when I was working with this aluminum foil is that it wrinkles and it folds quite a lot, but I am still quite happy with how this came out. It don't really matter if it's a bit folded, because once you have a sword in real life and you bang it against stuff for long enough, it's going to be scratched, and because you hone the edge all the time, it's gonna be uneven, and so it don't really matter. So I'm not gonna show that much on screen because I won't hold the camera this close to it when filming. And as you can see, I also glued this piece on, and my plan is to, because these are also metallic, my plan is to coat it with the opposite side of the aluminum foil, the matte side, to create a contrast. And as you can see there in the background, I've also gotten started on the sheath for the sword, and it will slide in like that quite nicely. And I will coat this sheet in cloth, so to protect the aluminum, and because I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I read somewhere that real sheaths sometimes had coats of fur inside of them to protect the blade and to make them easier to oil, so the blade would slide easier in and out. So that is my plan. And now, because we're filming tomorrow, glamdring will of course not be made, so if we're gonna need another sword, I guess we'll use Aragon sword twice, but that's how things are. And you might see there's the pommel. It's now all smoothen out, but I still have to make it more of an egg shape. So, but I will come back to you when that is done. So it's now the evening before we start filming, and this is how the sword is looking right now. I've glued on this second piece of aluminum with the matte side for the contrast, as I told you, and I've glued on and painted the pommel, and it didn't turn out quite as egg-shaped as I wanted, but I think it's pretty good. And I also painted it black, as you can see, and the sheath is ready. I'm sorry I forgot to update on the lining with the cloth, but it's there, as you can see, and the sword fits there. Now I can't do that with only one hand, but I will show you in a second. There, like that, and it does fit both ways, but it's smoother one way. There, and it does fit both ways, but it's smoother one way than the other, and but yeah, it's quite good. And this sheath might need some after work, some sanding, but it has its general shape. And if I can just move out a bit, that is how it looks. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna paint this yet. It might be a lack of time there, time problem, if the paint doesn't dry properly, but I might just as well coat it in some kind of black cloth and make hangers for it, so I can hang it in my belt. And then I will have to make a real grip for this handle, and I was rummaging around for some black cloth at home when I found this. This is something much better. This is real leather, and this piece was much larger originally, but I cut it down. Now I only have to measure how much I'll need to go around the entire grip and then glue it on. So it's now the morning of the day we start filming, and this is how the sword and sheath now looks. And in the end I went for the cloth around the sheath because it didn't take as much after work on the sheath and sanding and such. And my glue that I used I ran out of it just as I was going to glue this piece on. So I just hope this will hold up today and that I can do something better with fresh glue, but we'll see. Just pray to the gods and hope this will hold with the little glue that I had left to glue it with. So, and then I did a second coat. Paint on the pommel, and I glued on the leather. Then I realized that the pommel should be metallic too, but I kind of like it black. And then Aragon sword has a metallic band around the middle of the handle here, but I chosen not to do that because I like the handle like that. So it's not a perfect recreation in any way, but I wasn't aiming towards that. I was aiming towards a look-alike, and that is what I have here. And I am really happy with it because I made it myself. I made it out of wood, and as I've told you, I suck at working in wood, so yeah. So now we've used this sword in filming, and it still looks quite good. The hangers did not stay onto the sheath, probably because I didn't have enough glue to glue them with, but my glue, as I don't remember if I told you or not, but I think I did, that it ran out. So, but if I draw it, if I able to, there we go, it gets stuck. Or was it just because of me? Well, anyway, we did manage, when we were done filming, to sabotage the tip a bit. The foil peeled away, and I guess because it's a combination of that the glue didn't hold quite well and that it's now coming air into from the tip, the foil is now loose on one side. Can't really see it, but I can feel it and I can hear it when wielding it in some angles. So if I'm gonna use this again, I might have to refoil it. I don't know yet, but I'm not gonna use it again right now, perhaps for a later video. But otherwise it held up quite good, and I wanna give, when I'm now at the end of the video, I wanna give some shoutouts to some other YouTube channels. Those shoutouts are to Scalagrim. I put his link around here, and he makes great videos of medieval weapons and how they are made and what they are used for and how they are shaped and stuff like that. And I learn a lot about swords from him. Go check him out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And to Will from Storm the Castle, his YouTube channel is Epic Fantasy. I put that link around here somewhere, and he makes a lot of great tutorials on how to make different stuff from fantasy games and movies in mostly foam board, but he got a few blacksmithing tutorials and cardboard and papier-mâché and stuff like that. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely go check him out. It's worth your time, and he taught me to always stay creative. And even though the sword I made now is not one of his designs or one of the templates he has made and shared, I got a lot of inspiration from at least two of his other videos, how to make a sword with foil tape. Though I used regular aluminum foil to this sword, but he got a video on how to make a foil tape sword, which is actually Robb Stark's sword from Game of Thrones. And also we got a video on how to make your own templates for the swords you want to make, and I took a lot of inspiration from that when I made this Aragon sword, and probably inspiration from a few others, even though he never made anything of wood, or any sword out of wood at least. Made like axes and stuff with wooden dowels, but as far as I know he hadn't made any swords out of wood, which I did now. But as I said, a lot of inspiration from that guy. Go check him out if you're interested in that kind of thing. Yeah, I guess that is all the shoutouts I have to give right now for this specific making of tutorial. There will come more from in the second part, and until then, be well.